The air crackled with tension as Officer Daniel Harper's flashlight beam sliced through the dusk, pinning 17-year-old Kira Jackson against the grimy brick wall of a Chicago alley. Her heart thundered, not from fear, but from the weight of the moment she was cornered, her mission teetering on the edge of collapse. One wrong move, and the truth she carried could ignite a firestorm or be buried forever. Kira's hands were raised, her dark eyes locked on Harper's trembling grip on his service weapon. "Step back, now!" he barked, his voice jagged with adrenaline. The alley was a claustrophobic trap, dumpsters overflowing, graffiti screaming silent rebellion, and the distant wail of sirens closing in. To Harper, Kira was just another suspect, a black teen in a hoodie caught near a reported drug deal gone sour. His training screamed threat, his instincts screamed control, but something in her steady gaze unnerved him. She wasn't cowering. She wasn't pleading. She was watching him like a predator sizing up prey. "Officer, you're making a mistake," Kira said, her voice low but unshaken, cutting through the humid night. Her words carried a weight that made Harper's pulse spike. He tightened his grip on the gun, his partner, Officer Mike Callahan, flanking him with a hand on his own holster. The third officer, Rookie Sarah Gwynn, hesitated, her eyes darting between Kira and Harper. The alley felt like it was shrinking, the walls closing in as the seconds ticked by. "Shut up and turn around," Harper snapped, his face flushed. He'd been on the force for 15 years, seen it all: gangbangers, dealers, liars. But this girl, barely old enough to drive, had a fire in her eyes that made his gut twist. "You're under arrest. Hands behind your back." Kira's lips curled into a faint, defiant smile. "You sure you want to do this, Officer Harper?" His name on her tongue hit like a shockwave. How the hell did she know his name? Callahan shot him a glance, his hand twitching toward his radio. Nguyen's voice broke the silence, shaky but urgent. "Dan, maybe we should." "Quiet!" Harper cut her off, stepping closer to Kira. The flashlight beam trembled in his hand, betraying his nerves. "How do you know my name? Who are you?" Kira's eyes flicked to the alley's mouth, where red and blue lights now pulsed, signaling more cops arriving. Time was running out. She had to play this perfectly, or her cover months of grueling undercover work would be blown. She was no ordinary teen. She was Special Agent Kira Jackson, the youngest operative in the FBI's Chicago field office, embedded deep in a sting to dismantle a drug ring tied to corrupt cops. And Harper, whether he knew it or not, was a name on her list. "I'm giving you one chance to lower that gun," Kira said, her voice steady as steel. "Check my left pocket." Slowly, Harper's jaw clenched, his mind racing. This had to be a bluff. She was too young, too ordinary. But her confidence gnawed at him, a splinter in his certainty. He nodded to Callahan, who edged forward, wary, and reached for Kira's pocket. His fingers pulled out a small leather wallet, flipping it open. The glint of an FBI badge caught the light, and Callahan's face drained of color. "Jesus Christ," Callahan muttered, stumbling back. She's FBI." Harper's world tilted. The badge was real gold eagle, blue enamel, her name etched in stark letters. Special Agent Kira Jackson. His gun wavered, but he didn't lower it. "This is fake," he growled, though his voice cracked. "No way a kid like you." "A kid like me?" Kira's voice cut like a blade, her eyes blazing. "You mean a black kid in a hoodie? That's what you saw, right? Not the agent who's been tracking your precinct's dirty deals for months." Her words hit like a gut punch, and Harper flinched. The alley was dead silent now, save for the distant sirens and Nguyen's sharp intake of breath. Callahan's radio crackled, a voice demanding their status. He didn't answer, his eyes locked on Kira. Nguyen stepped forward, her voice trembling but firm. "Dan, put the gun down. We need to verify this. Now." Harper's mind was a storm. He'd arrested dozens of kids like her, black teens in the wrong place, wrong time, always fitting the profile his training drilled into him. But this was different. If she was telling the truth, he'd just drawn a gun on a federal agent. If she wasn't, he was letting a suspect play him. His pride, his fear, his years on the force screamed at him to double down. But her badge, her unflinching stare, the way she said his name was unraveling him. "Verify it?" Kira said, her voice softer now, almost pleading, but still laced with authority. "Call it in. You'll see." She wasn't just talking to Harper. She was talking to Nguyen, to Callahan, to the cops now piling out of squad cars at the alley's entrance. The weight of her mission pressed against her chest. She'd infiltrated the drug ring as a runaway teen, gaining their trust, mapping their network. She'd seen the deals, the payoffs, the cops who looked the other way or worse took a cut. Harper wasn't the mastermind, but he was a link in the chain. And now he was her biggest threat. Harper's gun lowered an inch, then stopped. "If you're lying, you're done," he said, his voice hoarse. He nodded to Callahan, who fumbled for his radio, barking a request for verification. The seconds stretched, each one a lifetime. Kira's mind race-edge trained for this, but nothing prepared her for the real thing. The fear wasn't the gun. It was the possibility that her cover was already blown, that the ring knew she was FBI, that this moment could end her. The radio crackled. "Badge number checks out. Kira Jackson, FBI. Stand down. Repeat. Stand down." Callahan's hand dropped, his face ashen. Nguyen exhaled, her shoulders sagging. But Harper didn't move. His gun was still up, his eyes wild with disbelief and something darker, shame, maybe, or rage at being outplayed. "Lower the gun," Kira said, each word deliberate. Her hand still raised but her posture commanding. The alley was now flooded with cops, their flashlights crisscrossing, their murmurs growing louder. Harper's world was collapsing, and he knew it. He'd profiled her, assumed the worst, and now the truth was staring him down. Slowly, agonizingly, he lowered his weapon, his hands shaking. Kira didn't relax. She couldn't. "Not yet. You're not the first cop to make this mistake," she said, her voice softening but carrying an edge. "But you might be the last if you don't start asking why you made it." Her words hung heavy, a challenge not just to Harper but to every officer watching. The alley felt like a courtroom, and Kira was the judge. Nguyen stepped forward, breaking the silence. "Agent Jackson, we didn't know. What's the protocol here?" Her voice was respectful, almost reverent. Kira's eyes softened for a moment. She saw something in Nguyen, a spark of integrity that hadn't been snuffed out by the system yet. "Protocol is you let me do my job," Kira said, lowering her hands at last. "And you start doing yours without the assumptions." She glanced at Harper, whose face was a mask of conflict, then back at Nguyen. "I'm working a case. You just stepped into it. Now you're either with me or in my way." Callahan nodded, still clutching the badge like it was a lifeline. "What do you need, Agent?" he asked, his voice subdued. Harper said nothing, his eyes fixed on the ground, the weight of his mistake settling in. Kira took a breath, her mind shifting back to the mission. The drug ring was still out there, and her cover was intact for now. But this moment, this confrontation, had changed something. Not just for her, but for Harper, for Nguyen, for every cop in that alley. She'd exposed a crack in the system, a flaw in the way they saw her, and she wasn't done. "First, I need you to clear this alley," she said, her voice steady, authoritative. "Then, Officer Harper, you and I are going to have a talk. About your precinct. About your contacts. About everything you think I don't know." Harper's head snapped up, his eyes wide. "What are you saying?" Kira stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper only he could hear. "I'm saying I know about the payoffs, Dan. And I'm coming for everyone involved." The alley seemed to hold its breath. The sirens faded, the flashlights dimmed, and all eyes were on Kira. She wasn't just a teen anymore. She was a force, a reckoning, and the truth she carried was about to change everything. Kira Jackson's words hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. Officer Daniel Harper's face was a battlefield of emotion, shock, shame, and a flicker of defiance. The alley, now crowded with officers, felt suffocating, the weight of her revelation pressing down on everyone. Kira's mission was far from over, and the next move was hers. She stepped back, her eyes scanning the group. The other officers, a mix of veterans and rookies, stood frozen, their flashlights casting jagged shadows on the graffiti-streaked walls. The Chicago night was thick with humidity, the distant hum of the city a reminder of the world beyond this moment. Kira's heart raced, not from fear but from the razor-thin line she walked. Her cover as an FBI agent was intact, but the drug ring she was infiltrating was too close. One slip and months of work could collapse. "Clear the alley," Kira repeated, her voice cutting through the tension. This isn't a show. Her authority was undeniable now, her teenage frame radiating a presence that silenced the murmurs. Officer Nguyen was the first to move, gesturing to the others to back off. Callahan, still clutching Kira's badge, handed it back to her with a shaky nod. Harper, though, stayed rooted, his gun holstered but his hands clenched into fists. "You don't get to just walk away," Harper said, his voice low, almost a growl. "You think you can throw around accusations like that? About my precinct? My people?" His pride was wounded, his world upended by a 17-year-old who'd outsmarted him. Kira met his gaze, unflinching. "I'm not throwing accusations, officer.
I'm stating facts.
And if you're clean, you've got nothing to worry about." She paused, letting the words sink in. "But we both know that's not the whole story, don't we?" Harper's jaw tightened, his eyes darting to the other officers. Some looked away, others stared, waiting for his response. Kira knew she was pushing him, but she had to. The drug ring wasn't just street dealers, it was a network, woven into the city's underbelly, with threads leading to cops like Harper. Maybe he wasn't the kingpin, but he knew something. She'd seen his name in the files, heard it whispered in the safe houses where deals were made. He was a piece of the puzzle, and she needed him rattled. Nguyen stepped between them, her voice calm but firm. "Agent Jackson, what's the play here? You said you're working a case. How do we proceed?" Her question was a lifeline, a way to de-escalate without letting Harper off the hook. Kira respected that. Nguyen was green, but she was sharp, maybe someone Kira could trust. "First, I need a secure line to my handler," Kira said, pulling a burner phone from her pocket. "Then, I need you to run interference. Keep this quiet until I get orders." She glanced at Harper. "And you, officer, are coming with me. We're going to talk." Harper's eyes narrowed. "You're not my boss, kid." "Kid?" Kira's voice was ice. "That badge says otherwise. You want to test me, go ahead. But every second you stall, your precinct gets closer to a federal investigation." She wasn't bluffing. Her team had been building this case for months, and Harper's precinct was a hotspot. Dirty cops, payoffs, drugs funneled through back channels. She had the evidence, buried in encrypted files, ready to blow the lid off. Callahan, sensing the standoff, stepped in. "Dan, let's just hear her out. She's legit." His voice was strained, caught between loyalty to Harper and the reality of Kira's badge. Harper didn't respond, but he didn't resist when Nguyen gently nudged him toward the squad car. Kira made the call, her handler's voice crackling through the burner. "Jackson, what the hell's going on? You're compromised." Agent Marcus Reed's voice was gruff, laced with concern. He'd recruited Kira straight out of high school, her brilliance and grit making her a perfect fit for undercover work despite her age. "Not compromised," Kira said, keeping her voice low as she moved away from the group. "But I had to show my badge. Local PD cornered me. Officer Daniel Harper's involved." "Marcus. I'm sure of it." Reed cursed under his breath. "You've got eyes on you now. Pull back, Kira. We can't risk the whole op." "I'm not pulling back," she snapped, glancing at Harper, who was now leaning against the squad car, his face unreadable. "I'm too close. I've got names, dates, drop points. Harper's a lead and he's shaken. I can use that." Reed sighed. "You're playing with fire. If Harper's dirty, he's not alone. Watch your back, kid." The line went dead, and Kira pocketed the phone, her mind racing. She wasn't just fighting the drug ring now, she was fighting a system that had already judged her before she'd opened her mouth. She walked back to the squad car, where Nguyen and Callahan were keeping Harper in check. "We're going to the station," Kira said. "Not to book me, but to talk. Off the record. You three are my escorts." She locked eyes with Harper. "And you're going to tell me everything you know about the drops on 47th Street. Harper's face darkened. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Then you're going to learn," Kira said, climbing into the car. The ride to the station was silent, the air thick with unspoken questions. Nguyen drove, her knuckles white on the wheel. Callahan sat in the passenger seat, glancing back at Kira every few seconds. Harper, beside her, stared out the window, his silence louder than any protest. At the station, Kira led the way to an empty interrogation room, her badge giving her the authority to commandeer it. She sat across from Harper, Nguyen and Callahan standing by the door like reluctant sentinels. The room was stark gray walls, a metal table, a one-way mirror that felt like it was watching them all. "Start talking," Kira said, leaning forward. 47th Street. The drops. I know they're happening, and I know your precinct's involved. Names, Harper. Give me names. Harper's eyes flashed with defiance. "You're fishing. You've got nothing." Kira pulled a small notebook from her jacket, flipping it open to a page of coded notes. March 12th, 2 a.m., corner of 47th and Halsted. A black SUV, license plate XJ4-729. 50 kilos of product moved. Officer Daniel Harper logged as the responding officer, but no arrests were made. Funny, right? She slid the notebook across the table. "Want to explain that?" Harper's face went pale, his hands gripping the table's edge. "You're making this up. I wasn't even on duty that night." "Really?" Kira's voice was calm, but her eyes were relentless. "Because your signature's on the report, and I've got witnesses who saw you there. Not cops. Civilians. People you didn't think mattered." She leaned closer. "You're not the only one watching, Harper." Nguyen shifted uncomfortably, her eyes flicking to Callahan. "Agent Jackson, if this is true, what's the scope? How deep does this go?" Kira didn't break eye contact with Harper. "Deep enough to ruin careers. Maybe lives." She softened her tone, just a fraction. "Dan, I'm giving you a chance. Come clean. Help me stop this. You don't have to go down with them." Harper's hands trembled, his resolve cracking. I didn't take money," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not at first. It was just looking the other way. Small stuff. Then it got bigger, and I couldn't get out." He looked up, his eyes haunted. "They'd kill me. My family." Kira's heart twisted, but she kept her face neutral. She'd seen this before, good people trapped in bad systems, their choices narrowing until they felt like none at all. "Give me names," she said. "I can protect you. The FBI can protect you." Harper laughed, a bitter sound. "Protect me? Like you protected those kids you're pretending to be? You're in over your head, Agent." "Maybe," Kira said, "but I'm not the one with a gun to my head right now." She tapped the notebook. "Names. Now." The room was silent, the weight of Harper's decision pressing down. Finally he spoke, his voice broken. "Lieutenant Grayson. He's the one calling the shots. Him and a guy named Vargas. Runs the crew on 47th. That's all I know." Kira nodded, jotting down the names. It was a start. She glanced at Nguyen and Callahan. "You heard him. This stays in this room until I say otherwise." "Understood." Nguyen nodded, her face resolute. Callahan hesitated, then agreed. Kira stood, slipping the notebook back into her jacket. "We're done here. For now." The next week was a blur. Kira's team moved fast, using Harper's intel to raid a drop site on 47th Street. Lieutenant Grayson was arrested, along with Vargas and a dozen others. The drug ring was crumbling, but Kira knew the real fight was bigger. It wasn't just about drugs, it was about a system that let men like Grayson thrive, that let Harper assume she was a criminal because of her skin. She stood outside the precinct on the day of Grayson's arraignment, watching the press swarm. Nguyen approached, her uniform crisp but her eyes tired. "You did it, Agent," she said. "You broke them." Kira shook her head. Not yet. This is just the start. She looked at Nguyen. You're a good cop, Sarah. Stay that way. Question everything, especially when it's easy to assume. Nguyen nodded, a small smile breaking through. I will. And I'm sorry. For what happened in the alley. Kira's expression softened. Don't be sorry. Be better. She walked away, her mission far from over, but her heart a little lighter. She'd exposed the truth not just about the drug ring, but about the biases that fueled it. And maybe, just maybe, she'd planted a seed for change. What do you think, was justice served? Or is the system still broken? Share your thoughts on where the line between right and wrong lies in a world of gray.